yeah. John Wick Chapter 2 was directed by Chad Stahelski, the director that directed the first John Wick movie. And like the majority of people, I thought John Wick, the first one, was going to be just your average action film, nothing really special, but oh man, was I wrong. And I'd still confidently say that the first John Wick had the best performance by Keanu Reeves. And not just from an acting standpoint, but also the fact that Keanu Reeves does most of these stunts, which is really commendable. Hang on, let me just scratch that. Keanu Reeves is John Wick. So as you can see, I was quite excited to see this new movie, although I was a little bit nervous because the first one had this great character motivation with the dog, how, you know, the wife gave John Wick the dog after she died as a thing of comfort. And anyway, the dog ends up getting sadly killed by this group of bad people, so that was a really good character motivation and you could really root for the main character for that. But I was kind of nervous what this new one would be. I really felt it would be a bit more like I felt like this new one would be kind of just like a kill or be killed scenario, which I was like, it's not going to be as good as the first one in that regard. But surprise, surprise, it wasn't exactly like that. Some parts of it was kind of like that, but there was something else there as well. Even though it wasn't that kill or be killed scenario, I'd still say the first one had a better character motivation overall. This one, it still wasn't as effective. But once that kind of flaws out of the way, every other aspect of this movie is honestly just as good as the first one. And actually, now that I think about it, some things are actually even better than the first one. For example, this movie's actually got a longer runtime compared to the first one, meaning that there's more room for world building with the whole criminal underworld and also more action scenes. And I'm telling you, if you're going to this movie just for the action scenes, you're going to be skipping in the meadow after watching this movie, because man, there's some good action scenes in this movie. But if you think it's going to get a little bit tedious with him just using the pistol shooting at everyone, well, first off, I'd ask how, but secondly, there is more diversity in this movie, especially with actually close quarters as well. He actually does a bit more hand-to-hand combat. In addition with the hand-to-hand combat, there's actually a bit more gun diversity as well. Even though in the first one, John Wick did end up using a machine gun and a shotgun, this one's got some more of that in it. And another thing that is more noticeable in this movie is this movie's much more bloody. I'd still say that it's still style over bloodiness, because they still have the great cinematography in this movie. Like, they still have those really nice long shots. There's not these jump cuts all over the place. You know exactly what's happening in the fight scenes. And not just the cinematography in the fight scenes, but the cinematography in general was also really nice, especially with the locations they choose in this movie. So all in all, I really did enjoy this movie, and actually almost as much as the first one. Like, it's that much of a difference. Sometimes I'd say the action scenes are actually better than the first one, but I have to kind of downgrade the rating because of the character motivation. It's not as good as the first one. So since I gave the first one a 9 out of 10, I'm going to give this one an 8.5. I'd definitely say if you haven't seen this in cinemas, in which if you're in America and a lot of those countries, it's probably not even in cinemas anymore, because that was out ages ago, and Australia, we were waiting for freaking ages. Don't ask me why. But either or, if you're an Australian or in another country that hasn't had it released yet, or it's, you know, still in cinemas, go and check this movie out. Especially if you're an action movie fan or you watched the first one, go and check this movie out. So I guess that's it for the non-spoiler section. Let's go and do some spoilers. Sound the alarm! The rest of this video contains spoilers, so I would advise watching this part of the video if you haven't seen the movie. Unless you don't mind spoilers, in that case, go right ahead. Can't say I didn't warn you. So this movie doesn't stuff around, because right at the beginning, John Wick is chasing down this guy because he's trying to get his car back, and this guy is riding around on this motorbike. And the thing that I really loved from this scene is how they kept John Wick kind of slightly out of frame. Since he is the boogeyman, it really suited this whole scene really well. Okay, so after John Wick tries to escape, these things happen and these cars knock him back into this building area. Now, there's two things I liked about this scene. One, you didn't see kind of enough close quarters in the first one. A lot of it was close quarters, but he was using his pistol a lot, but this was just fist fighting. And also the second reason why I like this whole scene is because the reason why he wasn't killing them is because he wanted to go into a truce with this guy. This whole leader of this place where they held his car, he didn't want to kill him. He actually came up to him and gave him this alcohol and said truce. Obviously the guy says yes because his alternative is death. And I guess another reason as well why he didn't want to kill him is because it might make things worse, because he wants to try and get out of this whole thing. He just wanted to do his revenge and then return home. But as we know in this movie, that's not the case, because he ends up getting into this blood oath with this guy, with that impossible task, as I mentioned from the previous film. And this guy comes along. This is shortly after the when he gets his car back, which whatever's left of his car. And actually the mechanic that from the first one, that guy comes a bit into it, and he's like, yeah, it's going to be a long task. He listed out all these bad things about the car, but he's like, I can fix it. Even if there was only like a tire left, that guy would still say he could still fix it, because it's John Wick's car. Alright, so back to that whole blood oath thing. The guy that comes along, since he got back into it, that kind of breaks the whole thing, and now he owes this guy for whatever task he gives him. Anyway, so the guy tells him he wants his sister dead. His sister's in kind of like this board of directors and stuff, and he wants to be the board of director because later on in the movie he wants to take over the whole New York criminal underworld. So that's not good. But John Wick doesn't know that, and he has to do it because, well, he actually blows up his house first off because John Wick said no. But John Wick realizes in the end, once his house gets blown up, he has no choice, and he has to go to this guy and go and kill his sister. So he goes back to him, says where is she and stuff. This guy really likes chilling in museums, by the way. Like, bloody hell, like nearly every scene he's in, he's chilling in some museum. Nice shots though, I'll give him that. So after that he ends up going to Rome, and I actually like the montage they set in Rome as well. He like got these new guns, and then he like got this new suit, and then he ended up getting this like map of these underground catacombs he could go through to get to the that dude's sister a lot easier. Anyway, so he ends up kind of killing this sister. Actually, kind of not really. She kind of killed herself, and then John Wick still had to take the kill at the end by shooting her in the head because, you know, he still had to take it because I don't think it would really count if she just killed herself and John Wick's like, oh, she killed herself. Pretty messed up scene, but that wasn't what I expected at all. Okay, so then after that he tries to leave and he ends up coming across one of the bodyguards while he's walking out. He actually ends up doing kind of like a standoff thing, you know, like a Western thing where they do like a quick draw and it's like, but that was really cool. This guy is throughout the movie, and he was a pretty cool character, but I'll talk about him a little bit later. So after John Wick escapes, he goes back into the catacombs area again, and man, was this an awesome scene. This is the great scene for the diversity of the guns. For example, he uses an assault rifle for a while, shooting up these dudes, and then sometimes when he runs out of ammo with his assault rifle, he whips out his pistol and starts shooting at guys. And then another weapon he actually uses while he's in the catacombs too is he uses a shotgun. And this is one of those shotguns where you gotta feed the ammo in a lot. It's not a magazine clip one. So the problem is with this is half the time when he's taking out guys, he's trying to load the damn shotgun up. For example, there was one bit I loved where he rams him into the wall with the shotgun barrel, loads the bullet in, and shoots him. I'm like, oh god. That was a really cool little part there. Anyway, so after he leaves those catacombs, he ends up coming across that bloody bodyguard guy again. And they get in this big fight once again, and actually end up in Continental grounds. They smash through this window, and it's one of those Continental buildings where they can't kill each other. So they actually end up sitting in a bar and having a good old chat, and that was such a hilarious scene. I loved that bit. It was so, like, I could imagine the tension between them two, and they're just having a good old chat, trying to work things out. And actually, before I carry on, I'll quickly mention the main kind of, I guess it's not really the main villain, but it's the main kind of deadly villain, because the main villain, he can't really do much. He kind of just gets hitmen to do his work for him. He doesn't really have much experience with fighting and stuff. But the main deadly villain was this chick. She actually did sign language, which that was kind of interesting, and I thought that was a kind of cool little dynamic. So John Wick realizes that the guy that, you know, had the blood oath wanted John Wick dead because of what his next move is, which is, you know, taking over New York City and such with like the gangs and all that. So that guy with the blood oath actually ends up putting a hit on for John Wick, and oh my god, there are so many assassins and hitmen. Holy crap! Like, they're just getting phone calls everywhere to kill John Wick, and that's where you see the scene where John Wick takes on two guys with a pencil. And that's all I need to say. Okay, so a few other things happen, and oh, that's right, I just nearly forgot about the scene with when John Wick comes across the hitman guy, well, the bodyguard guy that wants revenge on him now. He fights him on the train as well in like a knife fight. John Wick ends up beating him in the end, and he actually stabs him in a spot where it's not gonna kill him. And yeah, so I'm starting to think maybe he'll come into the film next time and actually maybe help John Wick or something, or he might just try and kill him again. Oh yeah, and how can I forget the bit with the Blood Oath dude, the mirror scene. That was such a cool scene. Like, I love one bit how like a dude's coming along, John Wick sees him in the reflection, shoots the glass and ends up getting him. so good. And then he ends up killing that sign language person. And actually, I love how that throwback to the first film. She said the exact same thing as the dad said in the first movie. He's just like, "Be seeing you soon, John," but in sign language. Very cool throwback. And actually, now that I remember from the mirror scene, this actually happens quite a lot in this movie. John Wick runs out of ammo more in this. He had to keep going to other dudes and taking their bullets and taking their guns, or he had to keep reloading his gun, for example, the shotgun, and it added a lot more tension in this movie. Okay, so John Wick goes back to Continental Grounds because he finds out the Blood Oath dude's in there. And yeah, he's there having a good old meal, and it seems like he's not going to leave there for a very long time until John Wick just gives up and just leaves. But let's just say John Wick just ends up shooting him. I was kind of expecting this though, like, because when he walked down the stairs, they showed a close-up of his gun, and the hammer was pulled back. So I was like, yeah, this guy's gonna die. There's a very, very high chance he's gonna die. And yep, he didn't even say a word to him, I don't think, John Wick. He just said a couple lines saying, "Oh yeah, you can't get me, I'm in Continental." Not long after that, he ends up meeting up with the management guy in this different area. And let's just say he gives him this, like, signal, and everyone in this park just freezes. And that's when you know how many freaking hitmen are around this place. Basically, not long after that, John Wick ends up running for his life out of this park with his dog, which I kind of liked because it was like a throwback to the previous film, in which the previous film, he was just casually walking off with his dog, half wounded, and music starts playing, roll credits over the city shots. But this one took a bit of a different turn, and instead of him walking, he's running for his life with his dog. So I thought that was a nice little cool throwback and wrapped the film up really well. So, I think that's it for the spoilers review as well. I just want to quickly say, I am kind of worried about the third one now. Even though I was kind of worried about this one being the whole kill or be killed, the next one I feel that's very much going to be like that. And I was hoping the third one was going to be actually a prequel of what the impossible task is all about. They're actually going to do a prequel to that thing they keep mentioning, but I don't know if they're actually going to make a movie about that, unless they do the third one where it mixes the past and the present, which I don't know how well that would work. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you folks in the next one.